which, leather pants in German. So it's.
X-Men Evolution was a blast from the past for someone else.
X-Men Evolution was the start to a new story.
X-Men Evolution was heavy Y2K energy.
Nice. Very good. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Fallingtower's Watch the First podcast, the podcast in which we watch the first episode of a series so that you don't have to.
But you still can.
We could. So, of course, we are doing Superhero Month, everybody. Every show we're doing this month is superhero shows. Today, of course, we're doing
Saturday Morning Cartoon Month.
Nope.
Oh, okay.
That's next month.
Oh, it's next month. You're right.
That's the very next week, in fact. Muhammad is predicting the future. So if you have Saturday morning cartoons you'd like us to review, in the comments below, do WTF, type WTF, and the Saturday morning cartoon that you would like us to review, and we will review it. Maybe. I mean, probably not, but maybe. There's a lot of... Anyway, and also tell us where we can stream it. That's very important. Like you would have said, X-Men Evolution on Disney Plus, for example. Look, everybody, can you believe it? Colleen Crews is joining us today. There
Hello.
she is. More on her in a moment. We also have Dr. Mohammed Noor, who is the Vice Provost for Academic Affairs at Duke University and occasional Star Trek Science Advisor, I think.
All correct. Always a pleasure to be on Fallingtower's Watch the First.
Mm-hmm. Colleen here is an aspiring voiceover artist. She also makes really cool things, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. My name's Ryan T. Husk, and I'm wearing a Skeletor shirt. Whatever. That's
I
a
had
cool
the shirt
cartoon.
on for a week.
That's right. Wait.
My grandma bought me the shirt when I was 8.
Aw, and it still fits.
Yeah, it still fits. It's a little not as large on me, but it fits the way it's supposed to because it's an adult shirt.
You know what? I have a shirt that I've had since I was 6 years old.
Wow.
And it's pretty tight on me.
Uh-huh.
But the reason I still have it is because it was super loose when I was a kid. Like it was big and like down to my knees. And
exactly.
So now, and it's like so thin. It's like you got to look through an electron microscope to see the fibers so that the breeze doesn't blow it away. But anyway, look, the point is, everybody, please give this video a like. That's what I was trying to say. And also subscribe to this channel. We'd appreciate that. And give us a 5-star rating if you're listening in. And now it is time to play
Predictaments. This is Ryan's favorite part of the show. This is where each of us predict whether the other liked it after watching it without giving away any hints about whether we liked it.
We always do that, though. We sometimes like I'll be like, Muhammad, I predict that, well, you like kitties and this is a cat show. And you're like, no, that's you. Ah, shit, I gave it away. Okay. Anyway, so Muhammad and I have known each other for a few years. We know each other pretty well. Colleen and I have known each other for a few years. Mm-hmm. We've been in communication off and on, so we know each other fairly well. Muhammad and Colleen know each other.
Just met.
8 minutes.
Yep. 8 minutes. Sounds about right.
Interesting predictions here. Muhammad, I'll start. I predict that you like this show because you like kitties. And oh wait, no, that's me. No, you like this show.
Be pride.
I do believe you like superhero stuff. You have mentioned before that you like DC more than Marvel, more out of familiarity than anything else.
Yeah.
So I believe you liked this show fairly well. Colleen, you're a toughie. You're a toughie. Do you like superhero stuff? I'm gonna say you're gonna be mediocre on this. You're gonna be tepid. You're gonna be tepid on this. That's my answer for you.
Okay.
What do you think, Muhammad?
So I think Ryan likes origin stories and likes character building and likes it when things are left where there's a reason to keep watching the show. So I think overall you're positive. I mean, I don't think you were just captivated, but I think you were positive. I think it was good, solidly good. Colleen, I'm just going to go with the same because I have nothing to base anything on whatsoever. I'll say you liked it. Not your favorite show, but yeah, it was enjoyable. It was a ride. It was fun.
We'll see.
That's right. We will.
What do you think,
Colleen,
Colleen?
what are your predictions?
I'm thinking you guys both really enjoyed it. But it kind of some of the quality may or may not have aged, and that may or may not affect how you guys feel about it. But I'd say I think you guys liked it quite a bit. That's what I'm thinking.
Intriguing. Well, everybody at home, it is now your turn. In the live chat or in the comments below, make your predictions now. Do you think I liked this episode? Do you think Muhammad liked it? Do you think Colleen liked it? Take your time, type away, make your predictions. While you're doing that, Dr. Noor here is going to tell us all what this show is even about.
Do my best. Toad Talansky is a bit of a rogue mutant, no pun intended, and is pickpocketing people at a football game. When some people try to rough him up, Cyclops protects him but causes a huge disturbance. Mystique poses as a school administrator and interrogates Todd and urges him to get her more information about Cyclops. Meanwhile, Nightcrawler comes to the X school for the first time and is welcomed. But when Todd breaks in, Nightcrawler and Todd get into a fight that disrupts everyone and almost gets people hurt. Todd gets away and Nightcrawler almost quits, but is convinced. Is convinced to stick around. Sadly for Mystique, though, Todd doesn't remember his adventures, but Magneto tells her, quote, "This is only the beginning."
Oh, shit. Well, hopefully everybody, you're almost done writing down your answers, your predictions, because we're going to start telling you in a moment if we actually did like it. Not quite yet. Muhammad, where do we go now?
Now, this is my favorite part of the show. This is what we call expectation. And we call it that because we first talked about what we expected, what we individually expected before having seen the show. And then we spend most of the episode on what we actually what we actually got when we watched the show. It knocks us out as we do.
For anybody who reacted to him punching the screen, you get 2 for flinching.
2 for flinching. Very good. Yes. It's time to compare and contrast what we expected versus what we got, starting with Dr. Noor. Before you watched this first episode of X-Men Evolution, I forgot to tell the title, Strategy X. X-Men Evolution, entitled Strategy X. Dr. Noor, what did you expect, if anything?
Sure. So building on what Colleen said, I noticed it was from 2000 as well. So the Y2K vibes, as she mentioned. I don't think I'd seen this series before. I mean, I'm familiar with the X-Men. I've watched the original movies, like the ones with Patrick Stewart. And I think I even did watch the reboot ones that came later. I may have seen a couple of X-Men cartoons. I wasn't as crazy about the X-Men cartoons, but I may have seen a couple, but I don't think I ever saw any from this particular series. So, I mean, I knew of the X-Men. I knew Professor X. I knew Cyclops and Jean Grey and Rogue and all those folks. And of course, what's his name? The
Cyclops.
Wolverine.
No,
Wolverine. I was trying to do the things shooting out. So I'm familiar with them all, but I mean, for this particular one, what was the plot going to be, or who are the villains going to be? Was it specifically going to be against, the whole Magneto group? That I wasn't so sure. So,
Interesting. Well, Colleen, before you watched this first episode of X-Men Evolution, what did you expect, if anything?
I wasn't entirely sure what to expect. I've seen some reruns as a kid, maybe about 2003, 2004, only maybe 1 or 2 episodes. So I'm familiar with it aesthetically. I remember who's who, but I didn't remember enough really to have any sort of preconceptions. So that's kind of all I have to say about that.
Perfect. I'm in that same boat. I do love the X-Men. I remember getting a few X-Men comics as a little nerdy kid. Wow. I did watch that original, that like 90s cartoon X-Men that I liked very much. Really liked like Rogue and Gambit, Colossus, Wolverine, you know, the good uns. However, it was clear to me,
Zazel.
I don't know that one. It was clear to me that I have never seen or even heard of this one. So I had absolutely nothing, but I was very happy because I want to see new characters like this guy, whatever this dinosaur looking guy is. What's that dinosaur that
Armadillo.
looks? Yeah.
Or Ankylosaurus, I think, is what they're called. Yeah.
You know, and so I thought, okay, we're going to get, and then whoever this girl is, I don't know who that is. But it's exciting because I knew those X-Men backwards and forwards before, but I knew in future iterations they're missing some, they're adding others, so I was excited about that. So that's it. I was just expecting to have a great time. However, now that's what we expected. Dr. Noor, this is where we can actually say whether we liked it or didn't like it. What did you actually get?
Yeah, overall, it was okay. You know, didn't knock my socks off, but I didn't dislike it. You know, I was entertained, but you know, again, wasn't thrilled. I liked the setup and development. It was, you know, again, fairly easy to follow, so easy to see where it was going. There was a natural build throughout there. I like that there were multiple threads there, like, you know, what was going on with, say, Nightcrawler as opposed to what was going on with Todd Talansky. So, and, you know, eventually the threads kind of converged on each other. Didn't quite understand the Wolverine thread. I mean, it kind of came in there at the end, but like, where was he? Why was he gone? You know, but I figure, you know, we'll get that later. But still, you know, it was interesting. Felt just a little bit light in substance. Like at the end, I was kind of like, yeah, you know, not much happened. I felt at the end, you know, it wasn't like the best episode of something I've ever seen, and none of the characters were exceptional. I mean, well, I guess they're all exceptional because they're part of the X school and stuff like that. But none of them struck me as like, wow, I really like how that happened, or this person seemed especially interesting. I'm dying to know more about them, even though I do know the characters still. But you know, Scott was fine, Jean Grey was fine. I mean, they're all, yeah, they were a little light. Just like the whole episode just felt to me a little bit light. I mean, I would say that I think if this were a series I'd never heard of, let's say I'd never heard of the X-Men, and I watched this, I'd probably be a lot more critical. I think I'd be like, what was that? There was nothing in that episode. But I think they're getting a little bit more of a pass, at least from me. I don't know how you guys will feel. They're getting a little bit more of a pass since they are familiar characters. And I'm like, okay, I'm already vested because I like Cyclops as a character. I'm already vested because I like the, you know, Mystique, you know. So that's my overall impression. We can get into the details of the episode next.
Mm-hmm. Now, Colleen, what did you actually get upon viewing this first episode of X-Men Evolution?
You know, I actually concur with what Muhammad said. I actually really enjoyed it, but like he said, it was just kind of like a diet, just kind of like a taste of who the characters are being set up, what sort of premises. You know, I agree with the whole Wolverine thing, but again, it's banking not only on the familiarity with the characters, which is, you know, is perfectly fine. Like, again, that's what this is for. But it's also just the starter episode. It's just to establish the world, establish this kind of new generation, establish that Jean Grey's dating 3 people, including Professor X. I don't know why she's very touchy with everybody. It's a little weird. But yeah, that's something that I noticed with a lot of cartoons in general with these. I can't remember if it's episodic when it's continuation, but basically when it relies on telling a story over series or over seasons. The first episode is sometimes a little rough. It's either too quick or it just doesn't do enough. And I think that's what happens here. But I did like it. I really did.
Ooh, all right. You know, I gotta say, Muhammad, I definitely feel the same as you do. Nothing really happened. really nothing happened. Now they get a little bit of a pass because it's like a 21-minute show. So yeah, I mean, okay, fine. But everybody else has been able to figure out how to cram something into 21 minutes. So, and I think I give it more of a pass because I like the X-Men. So I'm just like happy to see my old characters and new ones. And there's my buddy. I like these guys. So I'm rooting for them and I'm going easy on them. But I think the big thing, the big question was, why not show some kind of battle with the bad guys? I mean, they showed like a little battle room situation, but that's what I was so surprised about. I was like, whoa, we didn't actually even see any. I mean, that's the whole, what the X-Men and these superhero things are usually about. There's a supervillain, there's a good guy. The bad guy wins kind of the first time, and then the good guys got to regroup, and then they win at the end or something. Nothing really happened. It was all very origin story-ish.
Exactly.
Which is boring for me. So that was quite the disappointment. And let's just open this up. They're all high schoolers now? Is that what's going on? Because those football players look like they were 30 years old. They would look like they were 30-year-old high schoolers.
Yeah, one guy in particular, he was more like gaunt than I am. Yeah, I don't know what kind of teenage guy in the year 2000 like hikes his pants past his waist and tucks in his shirt, but you know, I kind of stopped doing that in 1998, I think.
Yeah. Muhammad, what were your nitpicks? You seem to have a couple problems with it.
It didn't really make sense to me what was happening. Like, so when Storm went out there, what was her goal? You know, like, what was she? I mean, like, why did you just start sending like lightning bolts? And like, we're gonna bring him in. Like, what? What do you think he's gonna do? Of course he's gonna freak out. What was that? And then he comes inside, and he and Nightcrawler are fighting all over the place, and nobody says, "Hey guys, stop! Everybody, just stop! You know, freeze! No, let's talk." And and try to have a communication with him. No, they're just letting this whole thing play out. Like, what? And then they get into that, and then they hop into the danger room, and like, really, there's no button that you can just push that makes the danger room actually just stop quickly. Like, you have to have this long door. You unplug it. What is that? There's so many things in there that just didn't really make sense. But felt, I mean, what was sad is like we said, there wasn't much that happened, but it did feel like there was a lot of filler, which then is like, why are you giving me filler when you haven't given me the substance? I understand if always have to transition X to Y, and then and then Talansky gets away. We can't get him, but then the other guy left after him, and they had no problem catching up with him. Like, well, can you just stop and said, "Hey, I'm sorry, it was a misunderstanding. Let's just talk for a minute." No, whatever. Just, it really didn't make sense in many respects, which also bothered me too.
Yeah, and that's something that I kind of noticed with a lot of kind of origin stories, world establishment, sort of progression stories. From around this kind of period in time, is they have to put a lot of filler, otherwise it's going to go by too quickly to establish the world. And I'm not, I'm not gonna give away anything, but one of my favorite shows growing up, it's still to this day one of my favorite shows, Saturday morning cartoon. It's edited very quickly the first couple of episodes because it's just establishing the characters, establishing the lore, establishing everything. And then I think by the third or the fourth episode, then it kind of has fun, and that's kind of what I think what they're doing with a lot of the filler is they're trying to not have it go so fast. But that's, like I said, that's kind of something that I noticed just looking back and rewatching shows like this from this period of time. It does this.
Interesting. I did get a little bit of the Y2K vibe too, just kind of in the clothes they were wearing and the way they were acting. I did wish that we got to know more about the bad guy crew, because I'm like, hey, let's see Toad and Mystique. That was interesting. I would have liked to see a little. We got the impression that Sabretooth is following Wolverine, right? When Wolverine walked out of something, there's a guy kind of growling, watching him in the distance. Got to be
Oh, I didn't
Sabretooth,
remember
right?
that. I didn't remember that
It
happened.
showed
Okay.
right. It just showed for a second, but I'm like, why are you showing us that now if there's zero payoff in the entire episode? Like the
Yeah.
entire episode goes by and none of that is ever mentioned again. So this is really meant to be binged, even though it was made in 2000. So that was a little confusing, I guess.
No.
Well,
Again,
how about
it's
this?
to establish the next episode.
Here's the key, though. We like to ask this all-important question, which is, Muhammad, who is your favorite character?
I mean, in general, I like Jean Grey a lot. This episode, she wasn't so interesting. So, I mean, I think based on this episode, yeah, I definitely wouldn't pick Jean Grey. And I agree with Colleen. It was kind of weird how she was clearly with Scott, but then was awfully touchy with that football player guy too in the beginning. Like, okay, whatever. It's kind of odd.
Standing very close to Professor X when he's supposed to be talking to her and Cyclops, but she's like, I'm just gonna be over here with the professor. That was.
And did you notice she called him Professor Triple X too, which I thought was really inappropriate.
I didn't catch that. Oh.
I mean, and then Cyclops, I love Cyclops' power, but like he's always kind of a jerk. so I mean, it's hard to put it. I mean, this one he wasn't especially, but in like the movies, he tends to be a little bit of like a jealous, kind of annoying person. So yeah, I mean, I can't pick Toady. I mean, this guy who everybody says smells and was freaking out. And I mean, I guess the guy who seemed nice was Nightcrawler. He seemed good. I guess for lack of a better option, I'll pick Nightcrawler. He seemed like a nice guy.
This sounds like our conversation about DC's Justice League. So everybody, if you want to see our opinions on Justice League, just look last week. We just did it last week. That's WTF episode number 178.
I was wearing the same shirt.
Yeah. Colleen, did you have a favorite character?
My favorite character is Storm, but she didn't do much except
make a storm.
Just kind of like fly for a second, and then that was it. I'd say Nightcrawler, honestly, in this version. At least in this episode. I couldn't tell if he was like supposed to be Japanese or Austrian. I think he's supposed to be Catholic, right? Like,
right. I think he's supposed to be German or Austrian, but in this cartoon, it was not.
But they're not really. There aren't very many Catholics over in Germany and Austria. something Martin Luther.
Yeah, or Japan.
Yeah, or Japan.
But I believe Nightcrawler is supposed to be. Oh, I'll check, but I think
he said Lederhosen, which leather pants in German. So it's. But at first I was like, is he Japanese? It was, the accent wasn't really consistent, but exactly. Again, it's of its time. I'm not very great at accents either. That's something I gotta improve on.
Well, let me tell y'all,
2000 they should have been pretty good.
Right.
Yeah.
That's a big pass. I'll go for that.
Yeah, I'm not seeing it yet. Well, I'll tell y'all my favorite character. Boy. I think I might go with Toad, just because he's a new character that I haven't really seen in the shows that I've seen. Like, I don't remember if he was in the 90s cartoon. I believe he was only played he was only had a little bit of airtime in one of the X-Men movies. Yeah. It was played by Ray Park, if I remember correctly, who also played Darth Maul on he played Darth Maul in Star Wars, and he played Snake Eyes in G.I. Joe. So that guy has quite the trifecta of X-Men, G.I. Joe, and Star Wars for this nerd.
Wow.
But that's in the movie. In this, he kind of seemed like a dork, and he was stinky, and I didn't much care for all that kind of stuff. But I was just happy to be introduced to a new character that doesn't usually get a lot of airtime. So I was happy about that. I would have loved to see Sabretooth, because Sabretooth is awesome, assuming that 1 2-second growl was him. I guess I'll go with that. And Magneto, he had his thing, but it went way down. I'm like, he can't even turn his head with that helmet. Did you see that helmet? Wait, it was
No.
terrible.
Yeah, I thought he was supposed to be the Grim Reaper or something until I like really focused on the screen and I was like, no, that is Magneto. That's not just a cloaked figure. It looked like he was wearing just a shroud.
Yeah, it was
I like
peculiar.
Mystique in general, but in this one she wasn't so interesting.
Mystique, yeah. In the movies, she's played by Rebecca Romaine. Pretty awesome,
Ones,
but yeah, good character.
Who plays Jennifer Lawrence plays her, I think, right? In the newer ones, right?
Right. Yes, sir.
Oh.
So, did you guys have a favorite moment or anything that just really just blew your mind with, I'm going to love this show so much. It's so great.
For me, not necessarily. I just, I can watch a cartoon and appreciate it for what it is. There isn't really anything in particular. I mean, like I said, I didn't really like how Storm was just kind of watering the plants and then she flew for a second.
She also watered the floor, if you'll notice, because those plants were
right.
apart, and she had a little Storm that was just kind of going like that. So it was like watering a plant, watering the floor, watering a plant, watering the floor.
And it's like the weather outside. Because there's a hurricane that's supposed to. Yeah. Anyway, yeah. No, I can just appreciate the cartoon for what it is, and I enjoyed it.
It's interesting in almost all the other cartoons and series, usually early on, they introduce the school a lot more, and you see a lot of the kids, and you see them like doing their powers out in the yard and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Just completely skip that. It's like, no, we're not doing that this time. It's like, okay.
Was this before the X-Men movies? I don't remember when the first one came out.
I think the X-Men movies first came out after 2000. Yeah, I'd say maybe somewhere around 2000 or early 2000s.
Yeah.
Maybe 2001, 2002. Yeah. I don't remember, but I remember it was around this time. Was Toady a new character? Was he introduced in the series?
I don't remember him before this series.
Okay, because I didn't know him at all.
Yeah. So I don't know. He hasn't been explored a ton. I do have a couple questions though. One is Cyclops. He wears sunglasses, which is pretty much the difference between him destroying everything and not destroying everything. And they're easy to knock off his face. Can't he just get like a band or something that or goggles? I mean, what if they break? He's
already tucking his shirt into his pants that are waist high, so he doesn't want to be that much of a loser in the year 2000.
I mean, at this point, if it's a matter of life and death, guy, tie those things to your head, tape them, whatever you got to do.
Yep.
You can grow his hair long too and hide it underneath there if he doesn't. If he's keeping it there because he doesn't want people to notice it.
Yeah, huh?
What about Toad? I had a problem with Toad's superpowers. Clearly, he has very strong legs.
Yeah.
He also has very strong arms, which I don't know if they really show that off too much. But when he did a flip, he threw himself in the air with his arms too. So whether they were leading with that or not, you're able to discern that he also has superhuman arm strength. So why is he worried about this high school football player if he could just kick him 40 feet away, or he could just jump away? I mean, it's not consistent, and I was very upset about that.
So I think a big part of it too is because these guys are really big. Toady doesn't weigh that much. And that's the thing is like with bodybuilders, my dad was a bodybuilder, but he never got super huge. He didn't like that look. And he's like, yeah, they can't really move around. So I kind of want to stay on the slightly smaller side because they can't lift themselves up. It's like you get in, and he even said, he's like, yeah, if one of those guys got into a fight with somebody my size or even smaller than me, the guy smaller than me or my size would win because they can maneuver. So you have a point with the maneuverability, but it'd be very hard to kick, somebody a lot bigger than you 40 feet away. Well, that and also they were uh God, what's it called? The bleachers. They were under bleachers, so
That's true. Good point.
yeah.
All right. No further questions, Your Honor.
It wasn't super interesting. That's the problem. Is like
Yeah.
I was trying to think of when you asked about like were there highlight moments, like not really.
One more nitpick. And this one, maybe I'm wrong here. Again, please correct me if I'm wrong. Maybe this is a science question. Wolverine buys himself a bottle and slices it. The bottle doesn't break. It slices like a watermelon. And I could be wrong, but I feel like a bottle, no matter how sharp and how strong that thing is, would break, but not slice. Am I wrong?
Yeah, you'd be right usually, but I think the older and they're going for like old fashioned rules where the glass was like that thick. And I found like 100-year-old bottles that have been like sliced clean,
Really?
because they're just so thick. But that's how they break. They don't smash. They slice when they break. So I think it's following that kind of rule. But modern bottles, yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
You are correct.
I like this. I feel like we've all learned something today.
Totally.
Well,
A learning experience.
Colleen, I think it's time to talk about you for a moment. What do you think, Mohammed?
I think so.
I know. I'm panicked too, believe me. And I'm very nervous about this. However, you do a lot of really cool things. You make charms, candles, jewelry. You do some cosplaying.
Yes.
You're also an aspiring voice actor. What got you into voice acting in the first place? Was it watching cartoons and you were like, this is crazy, I want to do that?
So kind of gaming as well, but I've always done kind of just silly voices when playing. And my childhood best friend, he lived across the street, and we would always put on these little voices when we just play whatever. And then we played a lot of Smash Brothers, so we would imitate Kirby or like Pikachu, or just when we're playing. And it just kind of evolved from there. I had to kind of take a break. I have everything in place. It's just a matter of doing it, practicing, continuing to practice. But I've been kind of sick these past few years, so I had to kind of hold it off. But yeah, I have a real love for animation and just its various forms. I played video games, like I said, from a very early age. So it's just something that I guess just naturally I was drawn to.
What about cosplaying? Have you gotten into cosplaying because of your love for anime or animated shows, games?
Yeah, I mostly cosplay video game characters because that's my main love. But I always liked dressing up. My mom, she was very fashionable, and here I was, this like blonde hair, blue eye, just this, just with the chubbiest cheeks little girl. And she was like, oh my gosh, like she's so precious, and she dressed me up in just the cutest dresses, and everybody would be like, oh my gosh, oh, you look so wonderful, you look so cute. Halloween was always my favorite time of year because I could be anything. But I chose to be a mermaid several years in a row. And also Jeannie from I Dream of Jeannie for several years in a row.
Very cool.
And even just I was a latchkey kid. So when I'd get home, I would either just play video games, or I just dress up in one of my costumes that I had and just wear it for hours and look at myself in the mirror. I just really like creating. I really like wearing things. And I'm still very attached to my childhood. Again, my grandma bought this for me when I was
Love
8, 2001.
Really cool style.
Thank you.
Do you have a
Um,
favorite character to cosplay?
yeah, I'd say Princess Peach and Princess Zelda are my favorites. Yeah.
I
And
love playing Peach
Agatha
in the video
from
games too.
as well. Yeah, no, video games are definitely my favorite.
Hmm. That's pretty cool. Do you have a favorite game? You mentioned you're quite the gamer.
Yeah, I really love the classic Mario Party games. I yes. Everybody's like, "Oh, it's purely luck based." People who say that have not spent their entire okay, they were not only children who didn't have very many friends. I spent hours playing that game, and I can tell you right now, a lot of it is skill. A lot of it is knowing
Hmm.
exactly when to do something because the statistics change with every turn. There's been a lot of analyses that come from that, but yeah, I really like Mario Party 2 and 3. Especially. I'm a weird person.
Not weird at all.
No way. That's great stuff. Well, Colleen, can you tell everybody where they can find you and or your wares online?
Yes, so I on Twitter I am Peachy Pie Cause, all one word. So that's peachy and then pie PIE like the food. And on Instagram, Peachy Pie Cosplay. On Etsy, I still have to set that up. Like I said, I've been sick. I have a lot of stuff made. It's just a matter of doing it. So I'll have to get back to you later on that,
Mhm.
unfortunately.
But that might be Peachy Pie's little shop, I believe, right?
I think that's what it is. Like I said, today, this weekend's been very busy, so I haven't
Mhm.
really had the time to check, but
Sure.
I think that's what it is. Yeah.
All right. So everybody go check out all of those goodies. Oh, Muhammad's doing this. I know he's getting
Yeah,
excited.
getting my
Look
arm
at
ready for the karate chop for the bottom line.
what? But I thought we were going to do the terrible twos right now.
No, bottom line.
It's the terrible twos. It's the final two questions
Bottom
of the
line.
show.
The bottom
Question
line
number
of the
one
show.
is Colleen's like, are they fighting? What's going on? Question number one is on a scale of 1 to 10, Dr. Muhammad Noor, what would you give this first episode of X-Men Evolution entitled Strategy X?
I really think this is getting an extra, a big bonus because of the fact that I like the X-Men. Because I think, again, if it was a completely different set of characters or if I'd never seen them before, I probably would be quite negative. But as is, you said it, Ryan, when we were discussing them, it's kind of like, oh, there's our friends again. Oh, there's these guys. Yeah, okay. So what I wrote down on my piece of paper was 5.3, though I even have a note saying if it was a new series, I'd definitely go lower.
you wanted to remind yourself that this is a real caveat. This is legit.
Yeah. Like it definitely, I don't think it deserved a 5.3, but I'm going to give it a 5.3 nonetheless.
Mm-hmm. Well, Colleen, what about you? Scale of 1 to 10.
I'm going to be generous and say 7 because it still did establish. Yeah, no, I know it established the world. It established some of the characters. Again, there's a lot of filler. But even if I wasn't familiar with the X-Men, I'd probably go, you know what, this seems kind of interesting. I'm curious where this would want to go. So even though the editing and the writing wasn't ideal, it still did its job. It still kind of drew me into it. So I say because of that, I'm going to be generous and give it a 7.
All right. A scale of 1 to 10, I think I'm giving it exactly what I wrote in my notes, which was same as Muhammad, the reasoning, not the number. 6.5. The plot was pretty thin. If you sold that plot of land, you'd buy it for $40. That's how thin it is. However, the characters were fine. They were cool. They were characters that I already know and love. So I was still happy to see it. And I still enjoyed it, even though I was kind of bored, kind of didn't really, I was kind of saying, why don't you guys do something? Why don't you fight? Yeah,
Right.
I mean that it's a slow burn. They're playing the long game. They go, look, this is the thing that happens with pre-established franchises.
Mhm.
They take their time because they know they already got you. They know they've got a built-in fan base. They don't have to convince you this is a great show. They know, they're like, they'll watch. They'll watch. We'll take our time, do a slow burn. They'll watch. So 6.5 from me. Being very, nice about that, but that's what I'm giving it. 6.5. Question number 2 is the big one, though. This is the one that really makes people sweat. For the purposes of this podcast, we all had to watch the first episode of X-Men Evolution. But now that the podcast is over and we're free to move about the internet, Dr. Muhammad Noor, would you, of your own volition, watch the second episode?
The key part is the little clause you said there, of your own volition. It's the kind of thing that, if my son were young, I mean, he's in college now, but if he were young again and wanted to watch this, yeah, I guess. I mean, I wouldn't be opposed. I wouldn't be against it, but I wouldn't be excited about it. I wouldn't be like, oh, let's watch the next one. And I'm like, you want to do that? Okay. Be all right. On my own, no, I'm not going to do that. On my own volition, I'm not just going to go into, I forget what it was in, was it Netflix? I forget what it was in. Apple
Disney
TV,
Plus.
Disney Plus, that's it. I'm not going to go into Disney Plus and click on the next episode. No, I'm definitely going to not do that.
That is
much rather watch
so
Ahsoka
rude.
or something else on Disney Plus.
How dare you? Colleen, will you please tell Muhammad that of course you would watch the second episode, or would you?
I would. It's funny because I've been actually meaning to kind of revisit it because, like I said, I saw some reruns a few years after it came out. Again, this 2003, 2004. It's when the movies came out. I caught it on some other network. I don't know when I will do it, but it actually was on my list. So there you go.
Oh, wow. What a coincidence. That's great. Well, for me, it is a yes. I don't know if I will, but I would because it is the X-Men, and I would be curious to see them actually introduce the rest of the frickin' characters. I want to see the X-Men. I want to see the bad guys. The plot could be thin. Fine, I'll live. I just want to see the characters and see kind of how they play them out, watch them do their things until I lose interest. But give me something. I don't need to see Cyclops for the 1 millionth time being a whiner. Give me, but I'll tolerate him because I know he's part of the show. I know he's like an X-Men leader guy, and Storm, Professor X is cool. Anyway, it's a yes from me because I'm a fanatic with X-Men stuff. But that's about it. So this was a lot of fun, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. Please make sure you have liked this video. Please make sure you have subscribed to this channel. Give it a 5-star rating if you're listening in. Leave us some comments. Hit the bell icon for notifications. Do all of those things. And what I'm trying, yes. What I'm trying to say is, this podcast was very cordial.
This podcast, this podcast to me was much more interesting than the show.
Your turn, Colleen.
Oh, right. This podcast happened.
It sure as shit
is accurate.
Look we all tell the truth on this show. This is incredible. Now, everybody, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate y'all. Now, remember what Mr. Michael Kenyon Rosenberg always likes to say.
Don't forget to be an organ donor, and don't forget to watch the first of things.
All right. Now, freeze frame like Toad. Very good.
That shitty smile and pretend that